do is to be honorable, mature, and active once they reach a certain age. Before that, they don't really judge you, and they're like, yeah, they're kids, just teach them and guide them, give them some consequences. But usually around the age of 13 or 14, you're expected to be a young adult or a young man, where you're a guy in the old day. You're expected to help defend your village, uh, hunt for food, plan out things, and so on and so on. Same with women. So if you guys could, I know it's really weird for me to teach on Google Meet and I only see an icon. So I'm really glad to see some of you have your camera on. That makes me feel like this is somewhat normal. I don't know about you, but I hate how things are going with COVID already. So if you could, when I ask you to do something, please type something in the chat if I ask you to do so. That's how I'm going to take attendance from now on, by the way. It's not by just the Google attendance, but by people response. If you don't respond to everything I ask you to, you're going to be marked absent by the program afterwards. So please just respond, okay? There's no right or wrong answer. All the time, there's just okay answer, good answer, or answer that can be improved upon, okay? So with that, if I was, for example, talking to my dog and he doesn't look at me and he doesn't interact, I might as well just get a stuffed animal, right? So if I was talking to Lucas and Lucas doesn't stare at me, if you guys could, you can play the video later.
Hi, Lucas. Say hi to everyone.
See, when I say hi, Lucas, he responded. We only got him a couple weeks ago, and that was like a week and a half ago. So even after a couple days, he learned to recognize my voice and to behave. So, any creature that has a sense of connection, high reasoning skill, usually want to interact with each other. So that's why I'm encouraging you to do that. Now to the main lesson for today. Our main lesson for today is about observation and hypothesis. In a couple years, you guys will have to take a history class in American history. And one of the incidents that happened during the Vietnam War that's not very good for us as American, and I'm Vietnamese by the way, so this happened in my old home country, is called the My Lai Massacre. A young lieutenant, which is a college graduated soldier or officer, led his troop into a village, and his job was to see if he can find enemy soldier hiding in that village. The issue is he was not practicing good observation skill. He went to the wrong village, and because of his mistake of not being corrected in the past by anyone who cares enough to do so, he gave out order for his soldier to rampage to the village trying to find the enemy soldier. The thing is, he was in the wrong location. He didn't bother double checking. And without checking in his soldier and observing them behaving, some of the soldiers were very good and they did their job of just doing that, looking for enemy soldier. But some of them misbehaved because back then some of the soldiers were drafted and they didn't do what they're supposed to do as men of honor. If you look at this picture on the left, which is taken by a photographer in Time magazine, that means there were newspaper reporter there, and some of the soldiers still misbehaved. You see the young lady wearing black, holding the child, the young boy. If she's buttoning up her shirt and the teenage girl hiding behind her mother in the red shirt, and you see how scared this young girl is, seeing her older sister or cousin, you can guess in between the line what some of those guys behaved it like. They were not gentlemen, they behaved like the opposite of a gentleman. Several minutes after this was going on, that officer that was bad still continued to give that order, continued to go on through his things, until a higher ranking officer who was a helicopter pilot, which is this gentleman on the right here, saw what was happening in the helicopter and he told him to stop. Some of the soldiers did not stop, and this gentleman on the right here had to give command to his own soldier on the helicopter to shoot anyone who would disobey the command after the first warning. So when they were able to hear that on the radio, they finally stopped. By the time they stopped, several minutes later, over 300 people have been killed. As young as the age of 5, you can't imagine how a 5-year-old kid can be a possible enemy soldier, and as old as 80-year-old women and men. So there we have an example of the left, bad observation that led to pretty much everyone in this picture being killed or injured after this. And then a gentleman on the right who took action because of careful observation skill to save the lives of several other 100 people. Total over 300 people were recorded to be killed or massacred in that incident. Okay? Aware of your friends, your family, being aware of things that are done right so we can learn from them, being aware of data that you need to collect. So be like Sherlock Holmes, be as accurate and as detailed as possible. If you guys know, Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character in the book, right? Written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. If you don't know this, the author of that book, who is so famous, is actually just a science student learning from a professor, and that professor is famous for being very observant of his patient. Why is being observant very important? If you're a doctor and making diagnosis, you pick up 20 detail because you're careful, you might be able to diagnose someone with early stage cancer or an infection so you can stop it before it gets worse. If the Chinese government were more aware of the coronavirus and listened to some of the doctor who blow the whistle about it, it would have never spread as much throughout the whole world, and the number of deaths and infected would be much lower. It still will happen, but it will be much, much lower. Depression can only be based on natural phenomenon. It cannot, it cannot be based on human emotion or feeling. Imagine you are a judge in a court. You have to judge people based on the evidence, not based on their race, if they're black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, not based on the fact that they're old or young. You have to go by the natural fact. So which one of the following is a scientific question? That means it's only based on nature, and which one is not. So the first thing I want you to do is in the chat is read this 5 questions. A couple of them is a correct answer. Which one is a scientific question? So I'm going to give you a whole minute to read it, and then go ahead and in the chat, this is how I take attendance. Write down which letters, more than one, is a scientific question. Okay, so go ahead and do that for me. Remember, there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong, there's just feedback. If I think you're a little off, so I see Talon put down BD, I see Olivia put down BD. Go ahead, you guys. Read on your own though, don't just follow the crowd. Read on your own. The first person might be correct or that first person might be wrong. Remember, all those soldiers just blindly follow those other people. They didn't follow the rest of the other soldier who followed the job. If you guys want to Google the picture of the image, it's pretty sad. It's a little graphic, but I'm telling you, there were like 6-year-old kid who died from being shot in the back when they were running away in fear. Okay, so now me giving you feedback. The correct answer is B and D. Number 1, like is a human emotion. Second thing, Asian people, come on, Asian, that's a very broad spectrum. Just like saying everyone who's African or everyone who's Latino. That doesn't mean everyone is the same. Someone who is from Egypt is not going to be the same as someone who is from Zimbabwe. Someone who is Vietnamese like me is not going to be the same as someone who is from the Middle East. We're all Asian, but that doesn't mean we have the same culture. So you can't say do Asian people like to eat fruits, okay? So that's bad, not a good scientific question. B is good. C is also bad because you see the word love. That's a human definition, right? And E is kind of bad. A police officer should never give a people ticket based on the color of their car. They should give them a ticket if they're breaking the law by a lot, or if they're committing crime. They should never judge based on race, color, age, the way people dress, and so on, right? Right now on the news, people watched the news today and they saw that there's some damage from a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico right now. They saw that some people before the hurricane bought plywood and wood and they cover up their windows to protect their homes. So that's the observation about hurricane damage and people covering up their home with plywood or wood. What would be a good possible science question? Okay. So what is not a good science question is, are people irritated by the hurricane or the news by the hurricane? That's not a scientific question. Possible question is, how, is the house, here I have a typo right here, so I apologize. Is the house going to be less damaged in a hurricane with boarded up window? Another possible science question is, if my window are not boarded up during the hurricane, will I get more damage? You guys see how in that example, there's no human emotion, there's no definition and things like that. It's very concrete. A logical explanation. A hypothesis always starts with the word if. An action, in this case, house being boarded up. You took the action to board up your house. Then a consequence. The house will get less damage. And then the purple is the logical explanation part. So that way people know that you understand what you're talking about. In this case, the house will be less damaged because broken window can lead to water damage and flying debris coming in. So for your homework, you see that you have to do that a few times and you have to practice writing a couple questions just like we did right now. Okay, so once again, a hypothesis is if an action based on the observation, house being boarded up, that's my action. Then consequences, less damage because hurricane can cause damage. And then the purple, because of something. That's an example. So here I would like you to read this for 1 minute and write a hypothesis only based on what information you were given in the blue and a reason why you think that is. And you need to write an if then statement. If driving speed go up or down, then gas use will go up or down because of what I wrote down here in the FYI section. Olivia, if Mr. Wu drive faster, then it went up before I could. So if Mr. Wu drive faster, then he will use more gas because there's more air resistance. Excellent. So Olivia, perfect. Okay. That means that's not just the only one that's perfect. Everyone can write a different one too. If Mr. Wu use more speed, then gas mileage will go up because there will be more air resistance. Gas mileage means how much gas I use. So if I drive more speed, I use more gas in this case, okay? Because more air resistance. So Suleiman, very good. If you go faster, then the gas mileage will go up because it's affected by the air resistance. Ariana, also good. Sorry, my voice is running low. This is my 6th class and meeting I have today. If he drove faster, then he will use more gas because the faster he drove, the more wind pushes back. Paige, very good. That one's even more detailed, but all of you would have gotten full credit if that was on the quiz. Talon, let's see. If Mr. Wu drive faster on the first trip and slower when going back, will more gas be used? Okay, so you need a then, okay, Talon? So go ahead and write that for me. So you already have the if part, you need the then part, okay? So if Mr. Wu drive faster on the first trip, then what? Then I will use more gas, okay? Compared to the second trip, whatever. But rewrite that for me, Talon, so that way when I cut and paste it. Seth, let's see. If Mr. Wu drives slower, then he will use less gas because there'll be lower air resistance. Very good. That one's also very, very good. Just as good as some of my junior wrote this morning. See, if he drives faster, then he's going to waste more gas because there's more air resistance. Very good. Okay. Henry, if he drives slower, he will use more gas because it takes longer. Henry, time was never mentioned in the observation. I know that's correct. You know that's correct. But remember, we only can write a hypothesis based on the information given, right? I can't convict someone even though I know they commit the crime if I don't have evidence. Does that make sense? I cannot base my hypothesis and explanation on fact that I was not given. So Henry, make sure you don't talk about time in this case, okay? So go ahead and rewrite that one, Henry. But very good already. I understand you. I know you're correct, but you need to just modify that. Jade Santiago, let's see. Mr. Wu drives slower. He used less gas because the resistance isn't as strong. Very good, Jade. Ava, if Mr. Wu go faster, the gas mileage go up. Because, okay, if you go slow, then remember, we don't know if it's right or wrong until we test it, right? So this is just us practicing. And prediction is fine as long as you have the correct format. So I'll give you guys another 2 minutes or so to add your hypothesis. If you haven't, make sure you do so. I'll cut and paste that into my attendance program. And I'll wrap it up in about 1.5 minutes from now. So that way we can all take off a few minutes early today. And hopefully you guys can work on that spreadsheet that I uploaded yesterday. It should take you about 10 minutes. You will need to do what we just did right now.